So good afternoon. Dear partners, thank you for attending today's webinar. I would like to welcome you once again to the deep webinar entitled UPORTO Internationalization Strategies on the field of research. Today's webinar is brought to you again by the University of Porto. I'm Liliana, as many of you know me already. I'm the International Office of the University and I will be moderating this webinar. I will introduce you to the presenter, Sonia Pereira, but I would like to highlight some technical aspects before. We are live broadcasting today's webinar and you are in participant mode. Please keep your sound as it is, unmute, and if you have some problem, let us know through the chat room. You can participate in today's webinar by submitting your questions to today's speaker. And please write them down, and in the end of the presentation we can talk about all the questions you may have. It's now time to introduce you to our today's speakers for the webinar entitled Internationalization Strategies for Research, Funding Opportunities in Research. Sonia Pereira will be our guest speaker. She is responsible for the Research and Projects Office of the University of Porto and is also in charge of fundraising activities for strategic projects behind research. She has been involved in several national and transnational projects and is currently part of several projects running at the university. Over the last years, Sonia has been providing training sessions on grants writing, transversal skills within project management, etc. She is frequently speaker on topics around funding strategies, sources for international research cooperation, and research and innovation smart specialization strategies. Sonia holds a master's degree in economics and management of innovation and complementary training in project management, innovation management, and the new GPDR. Welcome, Sonia.
Thank you. Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, so
just a moment.
Okay, once again, thank you, Liliana, for the great introduction. That missed some time for me, or okay, so I was talking, sorry about that. I just forgot to, to unlock the mute. So hopefully you now can hear me better. So I was just thanking Liliana and the International Office for this possibility and this challenge as well for me. So for today, I was asked to talk to you a little bit about research dimensions at the University of Porto. I work at the Research and Projects Office, and we'll see in a few moments how this works internally. So besides presenting you the office, I will talk to you about our mission, our team, the interface within our ecosystem, and then I will go a little bit further when it comes to searching for funding, especially directed to research and innovation, which is my priority or my main field of action. Although you will see as well some references to Erasmus Plus, but this is because I will talk about some programs in which you can participate. So about us, the Research and Projects Office, actually this is a quite new name for our unit. It used to be only the Research Support Unit, but recently we have revised our regulation here at the Rectorate, and we are now part of one major project and office, sorry, and this has two components, the Research Support Unit and the Project Support Unit. So this is basically the big difference between the research support has to do with the information and managing the information about the research and innovation ecosystem at university and organizing some events that bring aboard researchers, students, etc., but not specifically within financed projects. That the financed projects and the project support unit has to do precisely with identifying funding opportunities, helping our community in finding opportunities of funding, external and financing for research and innovation activities, and organizing events such as information days or capacity building around these kinds of themes. So this is actually our structure. And this is the team. Actually, I'm here, so I'm the head of the office. We work together and directly with the Vice Rector for Research, Innovation and Internationalization. So we are a small office, let's say, at the Rectorate, but then again, we liaison with the faculties and all other structures when needed at the research ecosystem. So that's me. Then we have Andre and Tito, two people that work more on projects. And then there is Francisca and Lara, which work more around research initiatives and research management system, etc. So we are 5 people for now. Our mission, very, very shortly, is to support UPORTO's internal and interinstitutional relationships in research and development. I suppose that you should know already, possibly, that we are a big university, well, at least for our dimension in Portugal, and we have quite a big and diverse research and innovation structure. So we have the faculties, we have research units, we have competence centers, we have other institutes, research institutes and interface institutes. Let's say they link between research at university and research centers and the market. So there are lots of structures itself around research at university, and our role is to put things working internally within our internal ecosystem, and as well when it comes to research and innovation with external organizations that could be within projects or agreements, whatever. Specifically, what do we do, or a big majority of our activities? So we help our community, we are quite active in helping our community in identification, dissemination, and matching of funding opportunities. So let's say that we have, as we have 49 research units around university. So we help those structures to find opportunities for funding for specific ideas if they have them, or we can help them work on project ideas and structure projects around that. So we also are in charge of defining and implementing procedures related to project applications. So there is a decision to go forward with project application. So everything is set to move on. So we help in that process of understanding how this is work, the internal interactions needed, for instance. And at a later stage, we help those teams, those applicants, to write and set up project proposals and submission to the funding programs. If the project is approved, then we support the project negotiation. So when it comes, for instance, to Horizon 2020, there is nowadays little negotiation. So Horizon 2020, we'll see in a few minutes what it is, but it's the main instrument for research and innovation to fund research and innovation in the European Union. So things have developed as to ensure that what is delivered at the application form is what is to be contracted. So this diminishes the time to grant. So, but at national level, actually we have lots of clarifications requested during evaluation, for instance, and at the end of a decision for an approval of a project, it may be necessary to help in this negotiation stage. So that's what we do when needed. More generally, we do promote cooperation and synergies within University of Porto. This goes a little bit to our mission. So we have a large ecosystem once again, and we need to mobilize the right persons and right teams for projects, for initiatives, whatever. So it's important to have this aligned. Also, we are responsible for managing information around research. For instance, we're being requested to provide statistics and data about research performance of the university. So which means that we need to understand exactly what are the structures or infrastructures or people or agreements or projects around research at the university. So that's what this is about, the information system management. And at the end of the day, what we would like to do and what we want to do, we try to do every day, is to increase the external visibility of our research and have a better valorization of the activities carried out within UPORTO and within the large ecosystem of research at UPORTO. So meaning the faculties, the research units that are seated in the research unit, in the faculties, but also those that are in the outside of the faculties, but which also allows us to develop research linked to university. So these six boxes are actually the core of our activity, let's say. So develop activities to foster and develop the research made, either through initiatives, events, and projects. And another part, as Liliana said before, another part of our office has to do with the fact that we also work with the management bodies of the university and put forward with our knowledge and coordination of strategic projects. So we are talking about dealing with the deans of the faculty, for instance, or vice rectors or rector, whatever, who are interested in, for instance, renovating or improving the energy conditions of a building of one faculty, for instance. So there are some funding programs that have nothing to do with research, but they are also funding programs that we can apply to, and I work with them, with these management bodies, to submit applications and then help the university get some money also for those activities beyond research. So our clients actually, and in first instance, is University of Porto community, of course. So, and those are the professors and researchers. So actually we have here, and as far as I know, in many universities, this is a common thing to have professors and researchers, meaning that the same person has a part of his time dedicated to training, teaching activities, and the other part to research activities. So we do deal with professors and researchers, and now actually we have some changes at national level, and there was a large recruitment of researchers, let's say by career, okay? So these are our focus, and of course students. when we talk about students, we are not specifically talking about, when it comes to projects at least, about bachelor degree students, because they actually don't do quite research or independently. So we are more talking about PhD students linked to some professor or researcher who carries out some research, and then to a certain point, they can also have our support. But this is not the main activity. So our main target are not the students. On the contrary, the students are quite a good target for us. For instance, in the initiative that we have, which is the EJUP, Young Researchers Meeting at University. We mobilize students from every levels of degree, bachelor's, master's, and PhD, to be part of a scientific meeting, let's say, for presentation of research work. So here, in this case, for EJUP, which is the Young Researchers Meeting at University of Porto, which takes place each year. So we do deal with students from every level of degree. Other offices can also be our clients. Let's give you an example. The Knowledge and Technology Transfer Office, for instance. They are our clients because there are some national fundings, for instance, they can apply to for intellectual property projects, meaning our researchers, professors develop technology, for instance, and they need to protect that and put forward some patenting process. So there are some national funding for this office to help securing the costs of having a patent running. Okay, and that's made with our support. We provide support in submitting those applications. And again, regarding the last type of our activities, which has nothing or less to do with research, the management bodies and departments that need to have some sort of funding for their activities. And so this is a little bit more strategic, I would say, interaction with the management bodies of the university or departments. Just to give you an example, a few months ago, I was working with a pro-rector here at the university. He is responsible for the social responsibility and inclusion and well-being here at the university. And we just submitted a project to a national program targeting the implementation of a gender equality plan and that sort of things that really have to do with dynamics and functioning of the university, but totally gets out of the research scope. So our interface with faculties, I will try to simplify this because we actually have some structures that are quite distributed. I would say, for your information, that we have 14 faculties, and these faculties have a high level of autonomy, which means that they can actually submit proposals. Some of them have support structures like us, and then if they do have, we are a kind of a network with them. If they don't have this kind of support, so we are in first hand the main local, main central support to them. So what we do is that we liaison with the faculties, and we have people, members there that we articulate with us. And we do have the 49 research and development units. And around these actually are also institutes and in a broader ecosystem of research. So we work quite closely with them in different degrees. And for sure, we collaborate in the dissemination and support activities. For the 10 faculties that we are the first structure of support, then it's different. So we have the researchers coming to us, and also we provide everything as tailored support to project submission, preparation and submission. So at the end of the day, our office helps when it comes to projects and providing support to preparing project applications. Our work ends, I would say, in the moment that the contract is signed. So let's imagine that someone at the Faculty of Medicine has an Horizon 2020 project approved. We will provide support until the contract, funding contract or grant agreement is signed. And then we will send, let's say, the project or the portfolio, project portfolio to another unit, which is the project management unit. And they are exclusively responsible for the financial execution of the projects. So, and they work more or less like this, coming again and to sum up, in the faculties that have their own structures, we are just kind of a network, a net, and we are behind to be a support to those units. Otherwise, we are the main contact point until the project has a grant agreement, and that's for us, our office. As from the point that the project is approved, then it goes to another unit to provide support to the financial execution of the project. So, that's what we are, that's what we do. That's very, very brief explanation how things work in here. Yet, the other topic that I was asked to talk to you about was a brief introduction of the funding landscape, naturally more linked to research and innovation activities. So we'll just talk a little bit about the funding landscape, and I will show you how our landscape is at regional and national level, so that you can afterwards do your own exercise to find your own sources of funding. And then I would say something a little bit more common would be the European opportunities for to fund research and innovation activities. So let's go through the regional, national, and European opportunities. First, very briefly, when you talk about funding, there are some dimensions to be considered. So we can talk about geographical distribution of the funding, let's say. It can be either local, regional, national, EU, European, or international. So for us, local will be something here around Porto. Okay, I didn't put it here because I don't think that's quite common for the large majority of our research activities, but it can happen, especially if it can come from private sources of funding, for instance, or contract research. Companies, for instance, can come to us with some funding for something. So I would say local would have those dimensions. Regional, we do have programs that are managed and we apply to at regional level, mainly funding that comes from European Union to be spent in the country, but then in the country, the money is distributed according to the needs of the regions. So we do have funds for the region, and in this case, the north of Portugal. We had a lot of projects in this program. I will give you the names just in a few seconds. So from regional, you can go national. So our national agency, it's the Science and Technology Foundation. It's our national agency. So we do have state budget for research and innovation and for fellowships, for PhDs or postdoc work. And that goes to national and other projects, other funds, but usually private. At the EU, you for sure know Erasmus for mobility, internationalization issues, etc. So I will be dedicating more my presentation on Horizon 2020 and other projects that are more aligned with research activities. And international. So we do have a couple of organizations, the Bill Gates Foundation, for instance. I don't know, it's a private one, but there are the National Institutes of Health in the United States also, for instance, that it is open to organizations from the outside of the United States of America. But here at the university, we have less participation in these dimensions of true international funding. So we have the geographical dimension of the funding, and then we have two sides of it. Either we talk about private or public funding. I work mainly with public funding, okay? So as I said, we try to identify opportunities to prepare applications and raise funds through competitive funding, public competitive funding. And then what I mean with indirect support or direct support is that sometimes a program can have a strand to be applied to directly to the European Commission or at a specific national agency. I suppose this is the case of Erasmus Plus. There are some calls that can be submitted directly to HEASEA, which is the agency that manages Erasmus Plus funding, but also other kinds of funding can be applied to at the national agency. So Liliana is saying yes, so it's good. So this is the difference between direct or indirect. That means that we can go directly to I would say the European Union or intermediary or national, locally located, I would say, agency that represents a bigger program. So as for the national opportunities, so as I was saying already, I'm moving forward, but this is especially about state budget, okay? And plus the national programs, operational programs that come from the European funds to be managed at national level. So in Portugal, we do have a partnership agreement called Portugal 2020, and there is a package of funding to be delivered to Portugal, and then Portugal distributes around thematic programs and as well regional programs. And one thing that for us is quite interesting, and I don't know if you have that kind of dynamics in your countries, but when it comes to research and innovation activities and projects, everything is pretty much aligned with challenges, societal challenges, and the national and regional strategies for smart specialization. So this means in a few words that funding is limited. So countries and the regions have to identify the challenges, their needs of funding, and then channel, I would say like that, the money or prioritize the money to those priority areas. And these are called, so this is part of national strategy, and there are documents on this about national strategy for research and innovation and smart specialization. So being smart about applying the money that is public and is being given to be applied in priorities of the countries and regions. So that's what I mean with national priorities and strategies. And of course, for us here in Portugal, generally speaking, this is totally aligned with the EU priorities and challenges, health, transportation, security. So it's totally aligned with that. Just for you to have some visual, so at the bottom, at the upper part of the slide, you have the logo of our National Foundation for Science and Technology. So it's the state, let's say, agency, the public agency in Portugal. And then below that, you have the logos of the funding or the program that has the funding coming from the European Union to be managed in Portugal, and the specific operational programs. These operational programs are dedicated to specific areas. For instance, you can see the first one, Compet 2020. Compet 2020 is dedicated to innovation and internationalization for SMEs, for research. So it's totally aligned with our activity, and we pretty much apply to this funding program. And then there is POISE. It's stands for Operational Program for Social Inclusion and Employment. So projects for this area. There is the POCH, which is Operational Program for Human Capital. So for capacity building, training, etc., for people, let's say. And there is one, and these are the main that we work with, and operational program for the smart use of resources. And then that can be structures, infrastructures, sustainable mobility, for instance. We do have here at the University of Porto one project which is called U-Bike, University Bike, and that was the basic line that we got funded to buy bikes, okay, conventional and electric bikes. So we have our community moving around in the city and within the university in bikes. And this was actually open to the whole country. So there are 15 other universities in Portugal with the same spirits and with bikes running within their campuses of university. So there's also programs for agriculture, for fisheries and the sea. So these are the big programs managed within Portugal 2020. So money coming from the European Union to be managed specifically at national level. We apply directly to these programs. The regional is a strand of the previous slide to say that not the state budget, but the other one, so the package of money that comes from the European Union, and it goes directly to a structure within the north of Portugal, where we stand. And there are the same kinds of programs, and we actually have the North 2020. North 2020 is our regional program. We also apply a lot to it. Again, regional priorities and strategies aligned with the national ones, and in turn with the priorities of the European Union. So this is the basics of it. So we have Portugal 2020, as we just saw before, and then the first logo, North 2020, is our program. It doesn't mean that we cannot work with teams and institutions in the other regions. Lisbon, as you can say, Alentejo or Algarve, or the islands, Açores and Madeira. But we can work and submit applications being coordinators of proposals to North 2020. But we can also participate in projects with other organizations outside our region. We can go for other programs. So at the European level, we do have actually today, and until the end of the 2020, December 2020, we are living within the MFF, which is the multi-annual financial framework, meaning the overall budget of the European Union for the 7-year cycle of programming periods at the European Union, which means that there are lots of funding programs. They are managed mostly at European level. So direct support, we can go to those programs and apply directly. And for now, we do have 49 programs, and these are aligned with the EU policies. So either security, either employment, either cohesion, whatever. And there are 49. And besides those, there are a strand of fundings related to European territorial cooperation programs. What does this mean? This means that there are 49 broad programs, let's say, which respond or implement the policies. And then there is something that we call the cohesion policy that aims to develop the regions, every region, and harmonize the development of the regions in the European Union. And this is made through the territorial cooperation programs. And we also here at the university have quite a good participation in the programs. This can be transnational or interregional. There are different types of cooperation depending if we are talking about the borders or between countries or whole regions of the university. So 3 levels of territorial cooperation programs. Again, priorities totally aligned with the EU, etc. So this is actually the MFF, so the multi-annual framework funding for that we are currently in. So we are within the Europe 2020 strategy with its goals, and then the strands are, let's say, big themes. And we have the budget here divided. And I just have some, I have highlighted, I hope you can see it with the arrow, research and innovation. It's within 2 of the areas of intervention, which is economic, social, and territorial cooperation, cohesion, and the global, the competitiveness for growth and jobs. I have here something. So we can see that research and innovation has a good part of funding. It's within research and innovation, it's within different parts of the policy and strategy. So for sure in the future, this will move on or continue and funding will be available for this. So again, some visuals on the programs, especially those we work more with. So the Horizon 2020, so for research and innovation, it goes until the end of 2020, and then we will go for Horizon Europe from 2021 to 2027. So we in Europe are already working on the definition of the priorities and the definition of the new program that will follow this Horizon 2020. We have the ambient assisted living, ICT for health, well-being, aging. So it's an European program as well. We do have COSM, which is the European program for SMEs. It's more linked to the business sector, but actually universities and research centers can also participate. So, and then we do have some participation here. So the Erasmus, I just put it here because it's actually quite clear for you, I suppose, that it supports projects around innovation, education, training, youth, and sports. But actually within the education and training and mobilities, etc., and well, actually besides beyond those mobilities, there are instruments that can be used to develop research and innovation capacities, for instance, entrepreneurship. So not research itself, but themes that and projects that foster the development of the European research area, for instance. So those territorial cooperation projects that I would just talk to you about are these Interreg. So this stands for interregional cooperation, let's say. And we have quite a good participation in this. There is also this Connecting Europe Facility Program, which is also a large one. We are actually preparing some applications to this in cybersecurity or the EU student card. It's a little bit more technological and developing the technological structures of the institutions to be able to modernize themselves in technologically speaking. Okay, so it's connecting Europe, but it's a little bit more on the technological side of it. So there's this live program dedicated to the environment, and the next logo has to do with the health program, and it's actually more linked to public health, not specifically health challenges, medicines or whatever. And then within Erasmus, we are, and all these are funded, are managed by ESA, Creative Europe, and Europe for Citizens as well. So these are also opportunities to be looked at. Besides this, there are the networks for European science and technology cooperation. I'm not sure if you hear about this, but these are actually networks of researchers or institutions that are working in thematic networks and in every or large number of fields. So this is quite interesting as well. So just to give you a very, very brief overview of the new distribution, this is being discussed here, but after Horizon 2020, which is the main instrument for research and innovation, we already know what the proposal of the European Commission was for the next program for research and innovation. It will be called Horizon Europe, and it will have this distribution. I will not go into big details on this because I don't think it's quite interesting right now. But actually there's research and innovation, and for sure, lots of things coming up now regarding security and crisis response. So this also has to do with the need that the European Union has to adapt itself to the evolution and the context, social context as well. So this is what is thought to Horizon Europe, specifically for research and innovation activities. So in short, as for this funding landscape, and specifically at the EU level, there are lots of activities and thematic areas to be financed. So we can go for regional and urban development projects, employment, social inclusion, humanitarian aid, research and innovation, but also agriculture and maritime policies, so and fisheries. So actually, as I usually say, there's funding for almost everything. We just need to know what we want to do and how to find this, because the information is quite dispersed and it's not so easy to have it very clear in our minds because of the many number of programs and rules, etc. So there's funding for within a broad range of programs, areas and types of projects, also different instruments of projects. The funding opportunities have a kind of geographical landscape or dimension. I tried to talk to you a little bit about the funding system in a very simple way, but they are quite complex with different rules. And each program, I suppose you can have this experience as well within your context. Funding is managed in different ways depending on the program we are applying to. So we need to be aware of those rules and comply with them. And the most important thing is that this takes time and resources. So preparing applications is quite demanding in terms of people, and of course, people and our resources are money. So it's quite demanding. So that was the big picture of the regional, national, European landscape. Now I just will present you a brief overview of the possibilities for you to explore on opportunities specifically for non-EU partners of the DEEP project. So I believe that for the European Union partners, this is a little bit more simple to understand what I just explained before. Maybe for those partners of the project that are not so familiar with the funding landscape, this could be a little bit more broad. So For those partners from Paraguay, Argentina, and Colombia, we just make here a brief identification of the programs that you can exploit. So we do have Horizon 2020, you can participate in it just like any other country, maybe with some restrictions on the type of participation, meaning maybe you cannot coordinate a project, it must be organization here at the European Union or European organization that must lead the project. That can be the case. Or you can also find some calls for proposal that specifically exclude a country. This should not be the case of Horizon 2020 for you, but this is what we must see in each work program and program rules. So there are also international cooperation and development opportunities. Just Google it and try to find information on this. So the thing is that under this international cooperation program or initiatives, they are aimed at building partnerships for change in developing countries. So, and when we talk about developing countries, it can be, more generally speaking, countries that are not part of the European Union, so external countries. Okay, let's just take a look at it. The Erasmus Plus, so I'm sure your institutions know, so this is by excellence the program you can participate in, because it's quite open, maybe with some restrictions. I'm not totally aware of the rules, but as far as I know, this is open to regions and countries and the outermost countries. So for sure you can participate here. There's also the Europe Aid program. Okay, there is a support program, well, an aid program within between Europe and countries. So it is quite normal to see some calls for proposals within Europe Aid that says that Europe wants to cooperate with, I don't know, Colombia or Paraguay or China, whatever. So Europe Aid is a little bit more targeted to regions or specific countries outside the European Union. So it could be a good program to be aware of and exploit. Another one is the Development, Education and Awareness Raising Program, the DEAR program. And you can see the sentence below the logo, and it says supporting global change. So it is quite open also to non-member states of the European Union. So it's also a good thing to take a look because of the developing countries and regions in the education. I also have here the CITED. I'm not sure if you do have if you have heard about it, but this is a program to develop the countries of the Latin American countries in science and technology. It's an Ibero-American network, let's say, of organizations that can participate, and they have every year usually calls for proposals in specific areas. And EU-LAC, the circle over there is actually, oh yeah, sorry, I just forgot I could manage this. So the EU-LAC is actually a foundation that is in between the agreement of the European Union and Caribbean and Latin American countries for cooperation. So they manage information and deliver information, organize events or calls to develop these activities between cooperation, European Union and Caribbean and Latin American countries. So as for Horizon 2020, so the program is quite open to pretty much each country, except if explicitly excluded in the call text. So each call for proposals is totally aligned with the work program. There is a call text defining the rules, and if it does not say that Argentina cannot work, cannot be part of it, so Argentina can be part of it. The same for Paraguay or Colombia, okay? So this is the list. In little letters, I just left the full list of the countries that can participate without big limitations. Even so, you should check the rules applying to if you can coordinate a project or not, if you can just be a partner. Okay, so that could be in the call text. Also, I think I found something interesting for you so that you can understand a little bit what is expected between this cooperation between the European Union and the Caribbean countries and the Latin American countries. There is this roadmap for EU CELAC cooperation. It goes back to 2018, so it's quite recent, and I would advise you to take a look at it because it's pretty much aligned for science and technology cooperation. So when you want to hear about research and innovation, science, technology, funding opportunities, you should read it. Okay, so this is a, I don't know, a 20 or 30 pages document, but it will show you what our priorities are and what kind of cooperations are being thought within the European Union for science and technology, or research included. So what you can read actually in this roadmap is you will find this information about Horizon 2020, what is currently in place for this cooperation between the EU and CELAC. And what you can see there is that you can participate in projects related to research and mobility, fellowship programs, and career development programs for researchers, research infrastructures development, and then what is called the societal challenges, big challenges, just like health, transportation, mobility, environment, climate change. So there is also agreement to develop collaborative research and innovation projects within Horizon 2020. So you will see, if you exploit this a little bit, that Horizon 2020 is divided in 3 big pillars. The first one is for research excellence, scientific excellence. And there you can explore the research and mobility and fellowship programs. And you do have funding for within the European Research Council and the Marie Slodowska-Curie actions, which are mobilities for researchers, and big projects for frontier research within ERC. And you also have within Pillar 1, the research infrastructures. In the Pillar 2, actually, we didn't identify quite opportunities, which is for industrial leadership. It's more targeted for the business sector and projects more, well, involving more the business sector and led by them. So it's not, we ourselves at the University of Porto do not have a large participation in this Pillar 2, which is industrial leadership. But then again, the collaborative research and innovation projects that are projects, specific research projects within big challenges, they are under Pillar 3, which is precisely societal challenges. So you can participate in all this, so you can exploit these opportunities. This is an example. This comes from the roadmap that I just talked a few minutes ago. And at the end of the document, you can actually see the table of topics and calls that are open to your countries, to Latin American countries. So within the work program of the Horizon 2020, and I must say that Horizon 2020 works with programs for 2 years. That's why you can see work program 218 to 20. So it's working ahead of the time to give opportunity for applicants to prepare and see what topics will be open in the 2 years to come, let's say. So you can see here that these are specific topics that you can apply to. Of course, you are expected to be part of this project with European partners, okay? So, but this network of the DEEP project and possibly others that you can participate under the Erasmus can be a good door, let's say, or an entry point for you to start working within Horizon 2020 and respond to these specific topics. So you can apply to this. As I was saying, the EU LAC Foundation, it's a kind of organization that follows up on the roadmap for cooperation between the European Union and Caribbean and Latin American countries. And you can see just a print on here, the EU LAC as a foundation, the action lines, publication events, and opportunities. So I just bring you a print of an opportunity that is currently open. And actually there is an annual call for co-financing events on bi-regional partnership between the European Union, America and Caribbean. So just take a look at this. It's a kind of funding, and I suppose you can also participate. So this is a call for events in 2020. It's now open. And the CITED, this is just an example of the CITED. So this Programa Iberoamericano de Ciencia y Tecnología para el Desarrollo, and you can participate. So I think this is closed for now, but you can see the calls, and there are different types of instruments, fellowships or projects, and usually the timings and the themes, the deadlines and the themes are defined each year. So this was the funding landscape, let's say, general one, and then the specific for your possible funding opportunities for research, innovation, science and technology. And just coming back to what I said earlier, I don't know if you think this is quite easy and this is quite clear, but it took some years to organize information like this and to understand how this funding landscape works and where to find information, because the information is quite dispersed and in several places. So one of the first things that is most important is to have an idea and how can we optimize the search and identification of funding opportunities. So this goes for European funding, just like it goes for any other funding that you are looking for, either at regional or national level. It depends on your own ecosystems for funding ecosystems. And we should ask ourselves, why are we looking at this? Why we want to apply? Where is the information? What funding is available? If I want something, is there funding is available for that? And if yes, how much? Am I individually or my institution eligible for participating in a project within a certain funding program? Is my research or innovation activity eligible? Is this the type of activity that would be fit within a specific program? And how to apply? So these are the basics of the questions that you should make. And just looking here, I just talked to you a little bit about before the EU landscape, but actually this is also the EU landscape, a little bit more composed, let's say, with some dimensions and other projects and programs. So this is what I call the tree of the funding tree. There are things missing, but I usually use this to know that there are lots of things going on. So we need to know where to go and what should we go up with to start looking for funding for us. So if this is too confusing, you can relax a little bit because there are some strategies, and for sure, if you are a bit more experienced, you'll be more, or you'll be quicker in dealing with these issues. If not, you can start in baby steps, and there is a certain logic. So how can you find, search and find funding? So I usually say, maybe I sometimes shock people when I say this, but just go to Google. I don't know. I usually do this, and I do it sometimes when I do need some information about the specific funding for a specific area, and I don't have it in mind, and because it's I don't know, a specific area that I don't deal with usually. So I just go for Google and I write funding plus the keyword that I want. So this is quite a basic, but it works actually, because the entries will give you, the results will give you some sources. Then of course you need to understand what kind of sources there are. If you see European Commission, okay, it's a good source. If you see, I don't know, maybe a company or a consulting, you can also take a look and identify that as a consulting. So it's important that you take a look at the results of the web, but it's a good thing. And actually, I think everybody does that. I don't know, I do it many times. So another possibility is to look for the funding agencies directly. So if we do know about a specific program or a line of funding, and we know that this goes into Erasmus Plus sport program, then we'll go there and see calls for proposals or whatever. We can subscribe newsletters, and there are companies or organizations in charge of this, and they do it for free. So we can have a subscription to our email, and we do it. For the Horizon 2020, we used our national contact points, and our national contact points are the ones that make the bridge with the European Union. So there is an office at national level, for instance, that is in charge of following up and advising and helping the Portuguese community in participating in the Horizon 2020, which means that for us, the national contact points are, maybe I would say, the national contact points or the people that make the bridge within Erasmus at national agency, I would say that. So people that can help us and provide us clarifications on the programs and the rules of the programs. And for sure, you can also use screening tools already available. I use this as there are websites that are open and that say EU alert, EU grants alert, see here new grants, whatever. So there is a list of new calls for proposals that we can go to and see what's going on. And at the end of this exercise, so this is searching and looking at what exists, you can or you should structure information according to your own profile. So there are lots of programs that I've been talking about with you, and possibly it's not of interest to you. I know lots of programs that are not worth mentioning to some researchers, but for others are good. So what you should do if you are a researcher or a teacher is to structure and make your own mind map. As for examples, this is our national agency website. So there is a menu on the top of the page that says calls for proposals. I will explore that. You should do it as well within your country or funding agency that you have. This is the Portugal 2021. So applications as well over there. So we can see all open calls for proposals. At the EU level, you can go for the overview of funding programs, and you can look actually to the areas. So you can see Asylum and Migration Fund. These are the funds available. You can see the competitiveness of enterprises and SMEs I just talked to you about before, the COSM. You have the Connecting Europe facility. So you can have here the list of the programs, of European programs that you can be interested in. And then you can also go to find calls for funding and by topic. So instead of program, by topic. So if I want something Regarding energy, I will look at the left here, for instance, energy or environment or whatever, and it goes and sends you to the programs that work in this area. And this is our national contact point for Horizon 2020 webpage. So you can see also the calls, a menu. And then these are the pillars: excellent science, industrial leadership. This is in Portuguese, I'm sorry, but I'm just translating. And the societal challenges. And you can see here within each pillar, for instance, the Marie Curie actions for mobility of researchers, the frontier research projects within European Research Council, or a big part of the projects here within the societal challenges. So research and development and innovation projects for challenges, thematic challenges: health, energy, transportation, climate change or climate action, but also reflexive societies, etc. These are, this is an example of a website, just like I told you. This is open. You can go to euroalert.net. This is one of those, and I just received it in email, so I can go here and see. You can see that this is for European funding, the calls for proposals for European Union funds. So you can see what stands here. New calls, and calls that are currently open still. So it's quite interesting to see the calls. And then from here, you can go to the program and the call for proposals text. This is another one, kind of the same thing, find EU funds. So you can start by here. Another thing is to structure information. So what I'm showing you now, it's our internal observatory for funding at the university. And actually we run every week a search and identification for funding opportunities. And we then, let's say we have a matrix of areas and faculties, and then when we identify call for proposals, we fit, let's say, each funding opportunity for each of our schools. So this is our funding observatory. This is an open website. And in each circle here are the new opportunities that are identified and mapped each week. Okay, so these are the new opportunities by faculty, but you can also go down here and look for areas, search by areas. And also you can, it's not here quite clear, but there is a search icon here that allows you to search by keyword. So either you go for new opportunities that are released every week, or you search funding opportunities by area, or you can go for the search icon and look for your keywords. And this will give you a result for the university, of course. It's quite good. I'm not sure if you have it like this in your universities. So this is has been a project since 2015. And it's actually going to be changed in a few months to open up to the research unit or the research institutes of the university. For now, we only have the faculties, but we are opening it up to our whole ecosystem. And then you can also organize things by doing your own mind map. So this is a general mind map. So as an office, this is what we use in the office. So we need to be aware of every funding opportunity in every field related to research, innovation, science, and technology, which means that we have to have these areas. Okay, but if you are a researcher or a teacher, researcher working in a specific area, you can do your own mind map according to your keywords, let's say, and your areas of research and innovation. So that's what we do. And then each of these opens up and we have the programs, the specific programs that fund biotech or nanotech or whatever, okay? We have it for national funding and international funding. I just brought you the international funding, but that's something that we can do for organizing ideas and information about our own interests as a researcher or a professor. So we are almost done. What we try to do here is to show what we do at the office, how we deal with the funding, and how to manage the information about funding landscapes at different levels, at regional, at national, at European, and also international, if that's the case. And that's important to have an idea of the funding landscape. So for anyone that is looking for research funding opportunities, this should be key to know the benefits. And let me tell you that the benefits of the EU funding, it's quite more attractive. It's quite more attractive than the national funding. Despite we have a larger number of national funding, the funding itself, the money is higher. So it's quite attractive on that. And the fact that you are networking and that you are working with people, well, within Europe, but also if that's the case within CELAC and the European Union, it can bring you to a higher level within visibility, internationalization. So it's absolutely necessary to have an idea of the EU funding system or the funding system around you. Understand the types of funding, what kind of activities are available. Define your profile, develop your project ideas, and then do this matching. So when we have our profile done, we have mapped our main programs or of interest, then we can move forward in just going into details of the program and see if we really can go to a project application under it. And then if all goes well, if you have an idea, if the matching is made, then you can try to move forward with being ready to submit a proposal. So it's important to be aware of the opportunities, be informed about research and mobility grants, contact European universities specifically for you that are at the CELAC countries, and if you are CELAC partners in countries outside Europe. So you have for sure your own networks within your continent, but it's absolutely important to link with the European partners. And when you make these contacts, just make a good marketing of it and maybe try to establish new links for research innovation based on existing links. For instance, in Erasmus, it can come from past collaborations, a new project. And try to participate in workshops, conferences, and meetings. And I would say the basics and the most important is to build on ongoing collaboration. So within DIP, you have a good opportunity, I suppose, to develop within your already existing network to escalate this and go to a different level and maybe exploit different projects around research, innovation, and science and technology. That's it. Thank you. So if you have some questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Sonia, for your very useful tips about funding opportunities in research. We do have a question actually from Universidad Cono Sur de las Américas, Jesus Cabrera. So Jesus is asking, about your presentation, how could it be a screening tool or some application? And then he further developed his question, is there an application that serves to notify? Maybe you can go.
Maybe this one, the subscription was this one, these two.
Jesus, you can turn on the camera, please, and talk. Let's give it a try, please. turn your micro on.
Okay, thank you. I want to know some...
Thank you very much for your kind words. Jesus, yes. Let's see if we can hear you.
You can hear me? Can you hear me?
Is there any application that serves to the type? Is there em relação àquela do... How could it be a screening tool or some application?
Okay, so I suppose that you are referring to these two tools because these are the subscription ones. So you can actually come here. So I don't know any application, specific application, although, well, let me go a little bit back. So we don't have paid service or application to map all these opportunities, okay? We do it by going to the websites and consulting all these tools. So, but I think there are some companies and applications that are paid and that you can access to receive funding opportunities, let's say tailored. I think they exist. You just need to look for it and to see those tools. These ones here that I just brought are open source, let's say, so anyone can consult them. And you can subscribe an email and you'll get an email with the just kind of newsletter. So every time and then you receive in your email by this zeroalert.net, let's say, saying there are new calls for proposals. Check it out here, the new funding opportunities. So if I understood correctly, I think I answered your question. If not, just let me know.
Jesus, is that clear for you? He had some problems with the microphone, I guess. Meanwhile, do you have any other question for Sonia? Thank you, Jesus. Thank you all for your presence. I guess no one has a question and we can end this webinar. I would just like to ask you to don't forget to send us the signature sheet that you have received in your email, because we need to do a follow-up with the coordination of the DIP project, okay? Send us the scanned version of the attendance list. Thank you all. And for those who are coming in November, we will see you in 1 month. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Stop vídeo. Fechei.
Eu também.